Let's Get Two presents
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here come the Astros, burning with desire. Here come the Astros, breathing orange fire. Here come the Astros, with winning on their mind. Here come the Astros, number one every time. Go, go, Astros!
We want Houston! We want Houston!
For the second time in 6 years, the Astros are baseball's best.
And now, Go Astros, a web series dedicated to the two-time world champs from H-Town, presented by three guys who remember Bob Nepper.
All right. Good morning, Astros fans. It is Monday. It is December 19th. It is, I believe with Christmas schedule, our final show of the 2022 year. And hey, 2022 was a good year to be an Astros fan.
It was. I'll say last episode, asterisk, unless something huge happens.
Okay, this is quite true, though we'll talk about the news that happens, and I think that means that the last huge thing that will happen this offseason, but we don't know. But we can talk about the thing that happened yesterday, which is that the Astros got a left fielder, and it's the same left fielder they had before, hopefully with a new and improved and bionic shoulder now, and that is Michael Brantley signing a one-year contract for $12 million. I thought this was notable. He signed now. This is his third contract with the Astros. Each of them has been for $16 million a year. And so performance incentives will allow him to bump this up to, if everything goes well, $16 million. I'm guessing that probably wasn't a coincidence. That was in sort of Brantley's mind here. There were sort of a lot of options about what to do in left field. There's some people they sort of passed up, notably Andrew Benintendi, who signed a 5-year, $75 million contract with the White Sox on Friday, and congratulations to him. James, I'll start with you. Your reaction to signing Brantley on the one-year deal.
Look, I was excited to get the news from Andy Tom Chesson because there's always going to be a little bit of commentary with it. Look, I like Uncle Mike. I'm glad he's back. I will say that it felt a little underwhelming, both from at some point, time's going to start catching up with some of these guys. And I don't necessarily love the idea that we don't know how the shoulder really is and might not know until March. I do like that he's left-handed, and I think with the shift going away, that's going to go back to old school baseball where that's going to matter, having a left-handed guy near the top of the lineup if that's where he is. But I guess I understand why as well, with all these deals have been so long, and we've been on the show saying that's not the way the Astros should do business. I will say I'm excited Uncle Mike is back from a personal perspective, but I found it just a little underwhelming.
Andy?
Here's where I am, and I think the exact commentary I gave James that he's talking about, am I the bad guy? I said, am I the bad guy for thinking that this is kind of a meh signing to me? And that's kind of where I am with Michael Brantley. I love Michael Brantley, the player. I love Michael Brantley, the veteran influence on the bench. I think he's a great clubhouse guy. He is 36 years old with a surgically repaired shoulder, to Jim's point that we may not know the extent of how good he's going to be until March at the earliest. My other concern, just if all those other things are good, on this show, we were complaining about how slow a foot Michael Brantley has become, which is normal for a 36-year-old, and how slow his bat looked last year prior to him going on the DL. A matter of fact, a little bit prior to going on the DL. So my concern, and it's all going to come down to how we pretend to use him. I saw somebody on Twitter this morning just penciling him in the 2-hole as a hitter. That's not real. I still think the plan for the Astros is that they think Yordan Alvarez is going to get about 50% of the starts in left field. I think what's going to happen, and what probably should happen, is that Yordan's going to DH and Brantley's going to play left field, or vice versa. And there's no real rhyme or reason to that other than somebody needing rest, somebody not needing rest. And I'm sure you have splits and things that would tell us when to use what, but in my mind, it's just we brought another old guy in because we didn't want to spend money for anybody younger. So again, I'm not upset about the signing, but this to me would be better if this is a fourth outfielder than a potential starter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unlikely that we will get 500 at-bats from Michael Brantley in the 2022 season. And I brought this up before. I want him to be on the roster opening day so he gets his ring at the ceremony and is in the lineup. And if they want to shut him down for 3 months after that, just because, I'm perfectly fine, because if we get, I mean, we got 300 bats from 300 plate appearances just about from him last year. Had we gotten them in September and October rather than May and June, I mean, it wouldn't have made a difference. They won the World Series anyway.
Say they win 11-2, so I don't know, but
Yeah.
you're right. Maybe 11-0.
But hey, you'd have felt better about the offense, right? It'd be one player deep, and they had to try to replace them, and those efforts didn't sort of work out. So that becomes a question. There are two reasons the mess sentiment kind of works here, right? Because this is not, hey, have they clearly improved? Well, they've improved over the World Series lineup because they have a above average left fielder if he's healthy. Two reasons I'm okay with this. One is the other options for left field. I don't think they should have done a 5-year contract for Andrew Benintendi. There's no upside to that contract. Right?
Yeah.
The chances that you're looking at that 4 or 5 years from now, like, wow, that was a really great signing by the White Sox, or, a world where it had been the Astros, seems low. That was, they got the value out of him, seems quite likely. Benintendi doesn't seem to have a big, seems to have a relatively high floor. But again, no sort of value proposition on contract. And they have some outfield prospects that they may want to think about for 2-3 years from now. Two is the alternative to Brantley when he is on the IL is Chas McCormick in left and Jake Myers in center. And I think the high man among Astros fans among Jake Myers right now. One is he's an outstanding defensive center fielder, so he was an above replacement level player last year, despite every terrible bit of offense that we saw, because his defense is that good. So that's, to me, to use the same analogy I used for Benintendi, it's a high floor situation with those guys. It won't be a collapse because, again, their defense is so good that it's, going to help run prevention. And you can, Brantley doesn't have a big platoon split, but you can platoon one of those guys to play a lot against lefties when that comes up. And there are more lefties in this division than some of the others. So in the AL West than some of the others. So, on those two contexts, I'm okay with this deal. I don't think they had great other options. And, yes, the other options, Michael Conforto, who is also a big pile of mystery at this point, that, hey, he could be great and we could be regretting this 6 months from now that they didn't sign Michael Conforto, or he could also have a shoulder that doesn't work and, say, oh, those are the two choices and both were bad.
I also tend to think that, and I have no reason to believe otherwise at this point, the Astros are still very high on Pedro Leon, even though he didn't tear up the world in AAA this past season. And so a 1-year deal makes sense as a placeholder for, and maybe even a part-time 1-year deal for Michael Brantley, depending on his health. I fully expect that we're going to see some of Pedro Leon in the majors at some point in 2023. And the goal is for 2024 that he is taken over a starting position in the outfield. That's always kind of been the plan. I know some people have tried to accelerate that. Every time he hits a home run, somebody claims he's going to be called up. We saw how that worked out with Corey Lee this year, right? He hit 25 home runs and got 4 hits in the majors. But yeah, I think it's a smart move for a short-term play that you hope is going to be max value at the end of the day. If he is somebody who truly only gives us 250 at-bats, and those at-bats are from July to September, great. I just don't want him at the front of the year for him trying to rush back when we don't really need it yet.
Well, I think to your point, Brian, as far as the image of Jake Myers starting now looks so much different because you have Josh Bell at first. You're not struggling.
We signed Josh Bell?
Jose Abreu.
Wow.
Sorry. But you have Jose Abreu at first. So now the lineup is just deeper.
Yeah.
And I think therefore you can afford to maybe have Myers in the 8 hole and not expect a whole lot. And just play defense, like you said.
That also means we're going to take our time picking on Martin Maldonado all year because you can't blame anybody else. They look like they should be able to hit. So all offensive woes for every loss will be on the catching position in 2023.
Man, and that's been what's been hilarious is I guess most Astros Twitter, that the ones that don't listen to our show, we've been telling them that Martin Maldonado was going to be the starter in 23 because what he does is better than what I don't know. His bat is not important.
I mean, they have been. It's sort of hard to parse through. They've been connected to all these catchers because I don't know, right? And there's a mystery there. Is it's like the previous three guys who left the front office, were they big Martin Maldonado fans, and the guys who've been promoted are less so? Possibly that's one theory. Are they just getting talked about because agents are pushing them for their clients? Again, I got several theories here. None really seem to make a lot of sense here. Frankly, there's a lot of, you talked about Corey Lee, Andy. I'm also relatively high. I think the backup job should go to Corey Lee. He spent a whole year at AAA. Getting him more at bats at AAA isn't about seasoning him or getting him major league ready. And look, one thing we know from the Martin Maldonado discussion and from everything else about catcher they talked about, particularly in 2022, is this franchise highly values dealing with pitchers, game calling, psychology, and that's a skill that doesn't get better at AAA. If you
True.
need to know this set of pitchers, if you need to know this set of guys and to be able to work with them, there's only a handful of pitchers on the 2024 Astros who Corey Lee's going to get to work with at Sugarland as the backup catcher, being meetings with him every day. Getting what I assume are 50, 60 starts during the season, I think would go a long way to, if that's the valued skill that this franchise has, and we think it is, we're better off that way. So I don't think they need to get a backup catcher, though and we've heard a lot about that in recent days. There's been reports they're interested in talking to Tucker Barnhart and Jorge Alfaro as sort of backup catcher candidates, and maybe they will. I'd be perfectly fine with Corey Lee next year.
But also, as we understand, whatever Jim Crane is willing to spend on this team, whether it's maxing out to the tax limit or something less than that, the Astros have to have young minimum wage players play key roles. Backup catcher this year is great, but next year Maldonado is going to be gone. You still want a Corey Lee who has a full season of major league experience under his belt to take over, because then you can afford to talk to Altuve or Tucker or Bregman about their next extensions or their first extensions in Kyle Tucker's land. You also have Fromber and Javier and potentially Luis Garcia that you want to talk about. So there's a lot of things on the table that I think Astros fans have missed in this offseason because we didn't go all in on a big free agent signing, because we've got some financial questions that we have to be able to answer in the 24 season, the 25 season, and the 26 season. Because right now, the only player we have signed for 26, Jordan, out of the starters.
He can carry the team, though. What about Yonder Diaz? Like, everybody talks about him, and I mean, what I've heard from a lot of people that talk Astros prospects is that Diaz is the catcher of the future, which is why Corey Lee will be up, why he continues to hit in the minors. But I mean, he's been in the minors for 5 years. At some point, we're going to have to see him, right?
Yeah, I mean, he made his debut last year, and then Dusty wouldn't play him, and notably, he wouldn't play him at DH. You get why. Yeah, they made the argument many times about how much they value knowing the pitcher's game calling, all that, but they were giving David Hensley at bats at DH over him, which I found sort of curious, and I'm also optimistic about Hensley. To me, the ideal 2024 scenario is that you have Corey Lee catching 100 games, you have Yonder Diaz catching 60 games and playing another 60 to 100 games at DH or first base. Now, that is an ideal scenario. It may be pie in the sky, and you may freezing cold takes me on this when we get to 2024. But Diaz is the catching prospect who took big steps last season, again, made his major league debut, and could be a big offensive contributor in the future.
And see, that's the key for me, is that people who are saying Diaz has moved ahead of Lee, that's strictly about his bat. Diaz is not a good as defensive player as Corey Lee. And if you're going to go that route and you're thinking, you can't keep discounting the idea that the Astros value defense at the catcher's position over everything else. They've proved it over the last 5 years.
Right.
Last decent offensive catcher we had was McCann. That was in 2017, 2018. Then you didn't even let Gaddis play there anymore. He could at least hit, until he stopped hitting and became a conservative talk show host, which is evidently what he's doing on Twitter now.
And McCann was a veteran, runs the pitching staff guy too.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah, exactly.
His bat was a bonus, but that was the last time that we had true offensive production from that position. It wasn't great, but it's certainly better than what Maldonado brings. But the Astros fans who want to project, we're going to get Sean Murphy. And yes, we should have kicked the tires on Sean Murphy. We should have looked at every catcher available. But at the end of the day, if they weren't going to provide play calling, defense, especially in a world where base stealing is going to become more prevalent, we all believe, you can't just say, screw it. We're going to have a bat back there and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, and Corey Lee's best asset as a catcher is his arm. So if there's more stealing, he becomes more valuable. And again, Corey Lee, frankly, projects to be something somewhere between Martin Maldonado and Brian McCann, which is he will be a low average, high power. He had 27 home runs, as Andy pointed out, at Sugarland last year. Sugarland, by the way, home park, not a great hitting environment.
No,
the rest of the PCL is. So,
although the rest of the PCL is, but Sugarland, the ball does not fly out of there very easily.
But he's projected for something like 220. But again, he has lots of defensive value and defensive skill. So again, it's not going to be a huge deal to me if they signed off R.R. Barnhart or insert backup catcher here. But it would not be my preference at that position.
Yeah, I would say spend the money somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and that leads to the next question is, are they going to spend any more money? And my sort of guess is no, not because they're being cheap, but because what's the hole on this roster they need to fill with a free agent? And I'm not sure there is one, or there's one they're going to be able to get someone to take on as a backup role. Are there some tweaks at the bottom of the roster, either at the back of the bullpen or on the bench, that you think you'd be looking towards? Or are you content with what we anticipate to be a bench of young guys, probably some combination of David Hensley, Jake Myers, Corey Lee, and Mauricio Dubon? Or is there someone one of those guys you want to sort of want to send down to AAA and try to look for somebody to improve on that? James?
I actually would kick the tires on Conforto, and I would say, hey, look, nobody signed you for well over a year. Here is a 1 year high incentive laden deal for the very scenario that you brought up. If he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. And we wouldn't have expended a whole lot of capital to make that happen. But if you end up getting what he was before he got hurt, well, then all of a sudden you've got a much deeper outfield than you had before. So I think that there's almost no risk in doing it. Particularly when you can say, again, you've been out, nobody has signed you. Here's a 2-year deal with all the incentives in the world, and see how it goes. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, the question for me on that is, they're fine to do that, from my opinion, is I don't know that Conforto would take that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at some point, nobody, unless he just keeps not getting signed, and then it's like, okay, I got to take something.
Yeah. But so I think it would be a while on that. Again, we shall see. Again, I think there's no harm.
You go to the Mexican League if you're Conforto, you marry Julia Morales. I mean, that's a win-win.
Well, hold on. Julia's taken, and
yeah, I'm sure there's another one somewhere.
Do not insult LSU, former LSU baseball player Matt Clark like that. So I'm going to stand up for him here.
For me, I still believe, and I haven't seen anything to the contrary of this, that we're going to somehow sign, or for some reason sign Yuli to a backup deal, where he's the utility guy. It would be very concerning to me, if you're talking about holes, for us to go into the season without somebody who can play shortstop outside of Dubon. I understand the organization believes Alex Bregman could be your backup at shortstop. I think that ship has probably kind of sailed, unless you're in an emergency situation. And
has he played shortstop since Dusty's been the manager? I don't think
not since Dusty's been the manager.
Yeah. And I don't think he really wants to anymore. I think he's settled at third base. I think he's, hopefully overcome his health problems. So that's great. And Pena should be your everyday starter, but at some point you do have to have somebody else who can take innings at shortstop. And that seems to me the hole with letting Diaz walk to Oakland, is that you don't have anybody who really fills in all those infield positions. Even signing Yuli, which I do think the team's going to do, he's probably a first base, third base kind of backup, maybe can play second base in a pinch, although I remember when he did that in 2019, it wasn't great. So that's, but you need a middle infielder for that, just somebody with a glove. I don't think that's Dubon though. I don't know what Dubon's role is on this team if Myers is healthy, because Myers has more offensive upside if he can, figure out how not to strike out. And he's better at center than Dubon is at short and center.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Dubon. I've sort of thought of Dubon as the second middle infielder. It's the former Robel Garcia role, and
he is better than Robel. I will say that Dubon.
And that has some value to this team. Remember, they traded him for a guy who the Giants released 6 weeks later, so they didn't exactly give up. The Giants didn't actually need anything. But I'm going to make a case here for David Hensley. David Hensley has outstanding plate discipline and has played, frankly, 5 positions in the minors. A tiny bit at left field. I'd like him to spend more time there. So I'm optimistic on David Hensley being the new Aledmys Diaz, being the San Diegan Aledmys Diaz. And
also, not to cut you off, but the Astros did acquire Ryland Bannon from the Cubs organization and put him on the 40-man roster. So when you do that, the intent is kind of to give him a chance, and he does profile as that kind of that middle infielder guy who jack of all trades, not a Marwin level guy by any means, where he could play 9 positions, but somebody probably who is in the mix that we're not going to talk about a lot till spring training.
What's weird too with Dubon is if Dubon's role on this team is purely to give Pena the odd day off, well, I'm all right with that. But if his job is to replace Pena, if Pena gets hurt, then I think we're in trouble at that point.
I think his role is also to carry Dusty's bags on the road, and I don't think that's going to change whether he's on the roster or not.
So, it is I mean. But I think this gets to, the broader point here, which is there's not a ton out there they can offer to people. So they may find a minor league free agent, they may find some more minor league free agent types or someone to take up a roster spot on the 40-man. But I don't know that they're going to target anybody for anything in particular. Again, they may try, James says Conforto here. Hey, there's plenty of people they can say, we'll give you a nice contract. Can you accept a little less playing time? They probably won't say yes to that, but, can't hurt to offer that to people. Since this is, we think, the last show of 2022, and again, 2022 is, well, as you can see from the sign behind James there above his Chucker sign there, World Series championships. It's a big year to be Astros.
Oh, and I've even got the new
awesome.
Got
and
the lid.
I'm,
yeah.
I also have gear.
I also have a switch that says, now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
Yes. Andy is dressed professionally as always.
Because I'm at work.
Yes. So
stupid corporate America.
I know. Well, I join academia and you have the exact same problems just without a profit motive.
Yeah, right.
But I wanted to ask you about, obviously, I think the thing we will most remember from 2022 is either Jordan hitting it over the batter's eye in Game 6, or Tucker catching the foul ball for the final out. But on sort of a personal level, what is individually one thing, may not be the thing that every Astros fan can remember, but you as an Astros fan, Andy, I'll start with you. What's one thing you're personally going to remember, personally treasure from the 2022 Astros experience?
July 21st. July 21st was the first day out of the All-Star break, and the Major League scheduler, who hates us, stuck the Yankees in our home park for a doubleheader when there was no need for one. And the Yankees, I attended the first game of this doubleheader. The Yankees were all geared up to make up for what had happened in Yankee Stadium a few weeks prior to that. And this was going to be the kickoff to their second half, where they were going to run away with the American League title. And we proceeded to beat them flukily in game one, 3-2, and then fairly decisively, even though it ended up being a 2-run win, 7-5. And if you look how the schedule broke after that, and the results broke after that, it really felt like, yes, some injuries contributed to that. But the wins left the Yankees' sails that day. They were less than a 500 team from that point the rest of the season. They made it through the first round of the playoffs and then got swept by the Astros. And if it feels like I'm talking too much about the Yankees, well, somehow them signing Rodon over the weekend led to all of baseball talking about the Astros and how Rodon's record against the Astros was so great. I would remind you the last time the Astros faced Rodon was in the playoffs. 2021. I would encourage people to look up the results of that.
But the worst part of that was, and I'm cutting you off, and I apologize. I'm going to vent for just a second. But the worst part of that was, anytime an Astros fan brought up the fact that what you're talking about, they're rent free. We're living rent free in their Astros. Hey, oh, shut up and win a ball game first. Sorry, Andy, continue.
But it wasn't just Yankees fan. Heyman wrote an article about it. There was at least one other major national guy that Rodon is the answer to the Yankees' problems against the Astros. Why does that signing have anything to do with the Astros if, the situation is not reversed and we're not the ones living rent free in somebody's head? Or how about they're just trying to get better as a baseball team and hope they can compete next year with the same lineup, still carrying Aaron Hicks?
I mean, they've got to get out of the AL East with, the Blue Jays now having Chris Bassett, with the Rays being the Rays and probably having 17 prospects we've never heard of who are going to have 1.5 ERAs. And
they all throw 102.
Yeah.
We can dismiss the Red Sox at this point here, but the Orioles, who have all this young talent coming up that, probably will consolidate this year here. But if they get out of that, then we can talk about the Yankees. I hate the expression rent-free just because
it's horrible.
No, it's so childish. And
that was the day, my favorite day of the season before the playoffs, was just crushing their season. In retrospect, it was very sweet.
It's indeed. James.
I actually have two. Sort of the on-field moment was Pena's walk-off against the Blue Jays. I thought it was in April, and I thought especially we see how the season ended for Pena. That was the minute where I started to maybe think I was wrong on being worried about the whole thing. I thought for a kid to be in that situation and ended a losing streak to the Blue Jays, I recall, and then just to hit that mammoth home run was a really cool on-field moment. Sort of an Astros moment, though. It always comes back to my wife and Jess and I. We have decided that we can't do as many games, so we do fewer games in better situations. And so we had club seats for 2 games in a row. The Astros won both of them and just had a great time with the 2 things I love kind of the most in the world. So that was those were my favorite moments.
All right. Well, James, I can tell you that the Pena walk-off was on April 24th. And the reason I know it's April 24th, that was my birthday. And so,
I do remember discussing that now. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was going to be mine here. Now I got to figure out another one here because,
sorry.
I mean, I got a Space City shirt for my wife and child, which is pretty awesome. But, a walk-off home run's even better. So it did sort of, work well with that here. So if I will pass off on that, I think I will take really the period in late May where they had that big winning streak in late May. And what that really did is it changed the rest of the season because it clearly indicated the Astros are going to win the American League West. And I think it greatly changed the commentary we had on this show and the commentary we had other places, particularly me, to say, the only thing we're worried now about is October. Our odds of winning are set. That's at the same time where the Angels absolutely collapsed. They kept getting more and more desperate with maybe that's it, the Angels' desperation of, losing and then going to Nickelback as a slump buster, which didn't work. Another crime of Nickelback. And then Joe Madden going into the Rally Mohawk, which he never got to see because he got fired right after he came back from the barber. And I always want to know, the Angels general manager, apparently being a good human being, decided I'm going to go fire him in person. He came over, went over to his house, must have knocked on the door. Joe opened the door and like, oh God, I'm going to fire you in a rally mohawk. Oh dear. You know, what he
Kids,
sort of
always
thought
take
about
care
that.
of all your personal meetings before your personal grooming. Just let you know.
You know, hey, these are issues I don't have to worry about. Having getting fired in a rally mohawk is one. Can't wear that hairstyle, and two, I'm a tenured professor. I don't have to worry about that. Getting fired at all. I'm ahead of Joe Madden. So, all right. And this is the week of Christmas here, which will be on Sunday. So I figured our final question should be something sort of Christmas themed. And so, what is the best sports themed Christmas gift you ever received? So, James, I'll let you go first on this one.
Wow. Well, I don't know. Like, I know you prepped us, and I kept trying to figure out what it was, and it was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I'm gonna take a knee on this and say I just actually got one 2 days ago, and it was it's two coasters, but it's like a 3-dimensional top-down model of Minute Maid Park. So it's like the coaster's like this thick, and then it's wood carved, and then it's got the World Series championship logo in the center of the outfield. But it was my grandkids who, I mean, it's my daughter, but it was my grandkids who gave it to me. So I think, that would be it. I've gotten a Colt McCoy signed football, which I still have, but I think that's it. I think it was those coasters from this year was pretty awesome.
It does sound pretty awesome. Excellent. Particularly getting it from your grandchildren. So props to them, i.e. your daughter.
Yeah, right.
Andy?
This was hard because since I've become a grown-up, I just buy my own stuff. So I don't have, I honestly, when it comes to sports memorabilia or sports related anything, I don't rely on my family, and I will. Part of that is that my wife tried, and I appreciate the effort, and it's always the thought that counts. But somewhere in like 2007, she gave me a signed, and it wasn't really signed, but she didn't know the difference, and it's fine. She didn't listen to the show. Roger Clemens Astros plaque that I proceeded to put in a box, and then it got lost in a move. And that, I appreciate he likes baseball, and this is an Astros thing, and great. Clemens hadn't been on the roster for 2 years. I hate Roger Clemens. He was back on the Yankees, I think, at that point.
He was, yeah.
And it very clearly wasn't an actual signature. Let's all that aside. She tried, and that was, the thought that counts, and that's great. I think my favorite actual gift, though, is when I was very young, probably about 8 or 9. And this was before jerseys became kind of a prevalent thing that you could just go buy at Academy or Oshman's, I guess, at that point. That was a place.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Joski's didn't have them either. But my parents somehow...
Did you try Palais Royal?
No.
I don't know where they got it, and I wasn't old enough to ask, but my parents somehow got me an Earl Campbell jersey, either made or printed or whatever, and I wore the hell out of that thing. And it didn't matter that when we actually got cold in Houston, it was 30 degrees and this thing had holes in it. It was probably tearaway. I wore that just like it was my Superman cape, probably for a little bit longer than I probably should have for maturity level. But I loved that thing. And that was probably the best holiday or sports related holiday gift I ever got.
You talk about buying stuff for yourself. My family, and I love this about them, are all about just give us a list and we'll pull from a list. Well, I made the mistake twice, and the second mistake of this was revealed last night after a very long plane ride. That yes, I provided a list and proceeded to already have bought 2 things that apparently my mother-in-law and wife had bought for Christmas this year on the list. And she's not happy with me about that. But I have the World Series Blu-ray collection if anybody wants to come over and watch.
Yeah, that was the message I got from my mother, because she was, what do you want? And that was the first thing I sent, and right immediately, like, who else have you told about that?
Yeah.
No one. Okay, then just don't tell anybody else. Take some of the mystery out of the day, but I'm going to get what I want.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Andy's discussion was gift probably annoyed his wife if she's listening. Hopefully
She does
is.
not. Thank God.
My discussion is going to annoy Andy because Andy, who were the Eric Campbell Oilers' greatest rival?
Oh, the Steelers, without a doubt.
And okay, before I moved to Houston when I was 5 and the Steelers were winning Super Bowls, I was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And so my entry on this is for Christmas when I was 5, I got a full, shirt, pants, helmet, shoulder pads, and I think there were some pads that went into the football pants, Franco Harris jersey and uniform set. And it snowed that year in Baton Rouge. So there are pictures of me and my father playing out in the front yard on Christmas morning in the snow, which doesn't look like snow anymore, as someone loses the Yankees in that jersey. And so that's one of my sort of great memories. And I had this tiny bit of strand that's still in there because when I was in Pittsburgh like a decade ago. LSU was playing West Virginia, and we're going to go to that game. And I go past some stand in Pittsburgh, wherever we are, that has a terrible towel. And I'm going to say, "Oh my God, I want that." And then I was, "Oh yes, I'm an adult now, make my own money. I can actually go over there and get it." And so did that. So I had that tiny bit of strain somewhere still in me, despite having converted to Oilers fandom sometime after I got to Houston.
When you hesitated after the word full, I was thinking you were going to tell us you got a full bottle of Terry Bradshaw Louisiana moonshine or something like that. So that's more appropriate.
I believe that's what my father got for Christmas.
Yeah,
so that allowed him to be out in the cold with me playing football in the snow. So
corn whiskey.
So that includes both this show, that includes the 2022 year of Go Astros. That includes our Christmas week episode here, I guess. So happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all. I'll have a holiday thought here at the beginning. Go Astros, James.
I'm just super glad we can all quit to pretend that we like soccer. Go Astros.
Mm-hmm.
And since Brian didn't, are you not going to say your line, Brian?
I'm going to say my line here. You want me to do it now?
Okay, yeah.
All right, so it is Hanukkah. So last night was the first night of Hanukkah, and so my kid really did get socks, but they were like Spider-Man No Way Home with 3 Spider-Men on them socks, and he got other stuff too. And I made a whole bunch of latkes, but it is a joyous season for the Jewish people, so I want to give a happy Hanukkah wish to former Astros general manager Al Rosen, to Brad Ausmus, former Astros reliever Josh Seid, wherever he is out there, and former Team Israel player. And of course, to current best Jewish player in baseball, Alex Bregman. And of course, the one person I know everyone in our fandom knows is a Jewish baseball player, Hall of Famer Rod Carew. Happy Hanukkah to all of you.
Leave Al Kaline out of that. Hank Greenberg, and we can go through the whole list.
Hey, real quick too, don't forget the Let's Get To holiday special is out, and it's hilarious. I am not hosting. Baseball Santa is here. These guys are both on it, so yay.
Didn't even know I was on there. So for me, happy holidays to everybody. Happy New Year. I hope that if we see each other again, it's because the Astros have somehow traded Jose Urquidy for Shohei Ohtani or something, and we signed him to an extension. Barring that level deal, I don't really want to see you guys until 2023. Go Astros.
On that note, I won't see you guys again until 2023. Go Astros. Thank everybody for watching today.
All right, great.